Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mystery Red Reads. I'm your host, Mystery Red, and this is my disclaimer. This beta read in Concord is at the author's request. This video is for learning purposes. Today we're looking at a piece of original fiction by Dontrike. We are back with No Name Shattered. We're on chapter 2, and this is read 5. If you'd like to follow along, you can look at Dontrike's playlist. I have a playlist for all of my repeat authors so that you can go back and follow along the journey of the story from the very beginning. I also do public and private videos, so I do have some authors I read for privately, and if you're thinking about getting a read, don't be shy. If you want one to be private, I can do that for you. First chapters are free. All right, let's see, let's just jump right in here. This pink highlight indicates where I left off, and I'm just going to remove that. Let me make sure I'm in suggesting. I'm not, I'm in editing, so we don't want to make any permanent changes to the document. I'm going to set my timer for 30 minutes, and here we go. Thank you so much for bringing him here. Natalie went for a handshake, but pulled back, seeing the blood on her hands. Whoops, best not to do that, the two women laughed. That's all right, Tamara said. I wonder if we should have a comma right there. I'm glad to help my grandpa. It's great practice having a weight while flying and learn what I can wait. Okay, let me try the sentence again. It's great practice having a weight while flying and learn what I can if I ever need it. Okay, so we have lots of short little words right here that are kind of what I would call connecting words. When we get these little words together to put our in proximity in our sentence, close together in our sentence consecutively, it can kind of bog down the sentence. And so I would look at it and see if I could reword it. I also was thinking learning, and it's suggesting learning as well. I'm going to go ahead and agree with that. Let me try to read it again with learning in place of learn, and then let's see what happens. That's all right, Tamara said. I'm glad to help my grandpa. It's great practice having a weight while flying and learning what I can if I ever need it. Not to interrupt, ladies, but I believe we're done here. Dr. Curtis dried his hands on a small towel. He'll need to relax as much as possible. No extraneous? Why? Okay, I think that even though we say that word, I feel like you hear doctors say it a lot, so it fits in perfectly. But to read it, I don't think we read it that often. And so my brain was absorbing each letter. Is that spelled correctly? Yeah, that's spelled correctly. Wow, that's a really weird looking word. That was all my brain just did while I was reading that. There's nothing wrong with the word in any way, shape, or form. That's just the process that my brain went through as I was reading it. And so I was amused at my own distraction. Okay, let me try that one more time. I do apologize. Not to interrupt, ladies, but I believe we're done here. Dr. Curtis dried his hands on a small towel. He'll need to relax as much as possible. No extraneous movements, lest those stitches open back up. I'm going to pause for a second. That word is still bothering me. Why? Okay, I'm good. It really is just because we don't read it that often that I think my brain is just like, wow, look at that. Okay, I like all these letters together. I'm a very strange person. Okay, we're going to ignore me. We're going to keep going. Thank you so much. Natalie went for a handshake before pulling back once again. I should wash my hands too. Probably for the best, he chuckled as he collected his tools into a smaller leather bag. And it would be best if you two were less open with your sexual activities. Natalie turned red, remembering the lies. I won't shame you for trying something adventurous, but those children could have seen him up there, he advised, handing her a small bundle of wrapping from his bag. Apply new dressing twice a day. If there are any issues, come and see me. He threw the large leather bag on his shoulder. Natalie, I would talk to those that built this house. There's no reason any on this road need repairs, he added. Okay, so this doctor is trying to figure out, he's just making an assumption about how this man came through a roof. Oh my goodness, what on earth does he think they were? I guess the dude's naked, so he's just trying to figure out what he thinks happened. But, oh my gosh, that is so funny. Okay, all right, I gotta stay focused. Okay. I certainly will. Thank you both for coming so quickly. Natalie showed the two to the door, all three saying their goodbyes. Tamara put her hands underneath her grandfather's arms and flapped her off-white wings. Dust kicked up as the muscle-covered woman lifted off the ground, and soon the doctor as well. They flew down the road only a couple of feet above it. Natalie returned inside of her home, closing the door behind her. Looked at Rafe, the pile of wood that was her roof and the hole in it, wondering what to do next. It's kind of a long sentence, a lot of commas. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's literally 5 commas in there. I would probably look at breaking this up into 2 sentences, but that's my only suggestion for it. I'm just going to put 2 sentences. Like it could be 5 commas is kind of a lot. All right. Rafe slowly got on his hands and knees to sit straight up on the floor, groaning, not used to the tightness in his back. Okay, now, interesting. We are switching points of view because how would Natalie know that he's not used to the tightness in his back? Okay, so there's a point of view switch right there. I don't know if it's intended, so I'm just going to mark musings in video to draw your attention to it in case that was, I don't know if we're flopping or intentionally moving over to Rafe's point of view or if we accidentally did because Natalie would not know in this part. A very quick, simple solution to stay in Natalie's point of view would to omit this assumption, okay, because there's no way she would know that. You could just say, Rafe slowly got on his hands and knees to sit up straight on the floor, period. Don't push yourself. You heard the doctor. She stopped as her eyes were yet again drawn to his groin, her face turning bright red. Okay. Her voice was 2 octaves higher, seeing it. First thing we're doing is covering you up. Hearing this, Rafe looked down and covered up quickly. All right, so covered up. I could be petty. I could not. Just for your quick attention, I'm going to point that out. And then I'm going to also highlight our adverbs because I'm seeing a little, I don't want pink because that's my spot marker. I am seeing them and I was choosing to overlook them. But if we're going to have a frequent number of them, we want to be able to find them quickly. And when I skip, when I don't say something and I ignore them, then all of a sudden I see that more and more. I'm wishing I would have marked them from the beginning. So I'm just going to mark a couple and we're going to keep going. Okay. So your purple today is marking your adverbs and your green is marking your echoes, and we're going to keep going. Hearing this, Rafe looked down and covered up quickly, embarrassed, remembering that he'd been naked this entire time. So again, this is another in Rafe's point of view. So I feel like we switched to his point of view at this moment right here, and I'm just observing that for you, and because I'm not sure if it's intentional or not. Sorry about that, miss. She giggled, finding his embarrassment cute. You know, I already asked why you were naked, and you just realized it now. She smiled. Kind of forgot, he chuckled, followed by a small wince. Okay, laughing hurts. She walked into the small bedroom, returning with a blanket. Okay, so first my animals are distracting the heck out of me with all their fussing. Usually they're not this loud, and for whatever reason, they are running around the house while I'm highlighting this echo and this adverb. We also have repetition on this adverb. This is like the 3rd time I think we've got it. Yeah, quickly, and quickly. So definitely want to look at that. Okay. I'm trying to ignore them, and I can only imagine the scampering sounds in the back of my video, and I really can't do anything about it because I have hardwood floors and they're running around together. It's a cat and a bunny. Okay. Let's try this again. Oh my goodness, I wish they would settle down. She walked to the small bedroom, returning with a blanket. Here you go, use this for now. Handing it to him, he quickly covered his lap. She sat down next to him on the floor. I think you could just say sat next to him on the floor, and we know if we're on the floor that we are down. She sat next to him on the floor and met his eyes. Based on what you said earlier, you don't have anywhere to stay tonight, do you? No, he shook his head. If you want me out, I understand. He couldn't take his eyes off of her. Okay, so because this is a period, this should be capital. Well, you are a stranger and you destroyed the roof. Any normal person would have called the guard and have you taken away. His heart raced at the thought. With that said, I can't just throw out an injured naked man onto the street. He looked back at her, eyes filled with happiness, her freckled cheeks pushed by her smile. I have tons of questions, and I want you to know I won't ask those until you're ready, but I do have one. Rafe looked at her with a puzzled look. Okay, so he looked at her. We're highlighting the screen. I wish you two would stop. Just stop. You're driving me nuts. I'm on the wrong word. I blame the rabbit. Okay. Rafe looked at her with a puzzled expression, thinking of 100 things it could be. So again, we are still in Rafe's point of view. So at that one point we switched. I don't know if it was intentional, so I just want to draw your attention to it. If it is intentional, then it's all gravy, right? Because you're doing what you meant to do. But I'm trying to pay attention to whose point of view are we in, and so I'm trying to observe that as we go to help you, because you're going to know what I don't know, whether or not you intended for it to be that way. Rafe looked at her with a puzzled expression, would be my suggestion there. Thinking of 100 different things it could be. How did you get on my roof? This house may not be large, but the roof is a good 10 feet off the ground, and I don't have a ladder. I get you're rather, she cleared her throat, looking at his chest, well built, but to get up there is a little hard to believe. I'm amazed Dr. Curtis didn't ask more about it. Speaking of, boyfriend, he nervously asked. I'm not even going to highlight that one. Just take it out. Just take it out. All right. If you want to show his nerves, okay, you can use body language, but I wouldn't just say nervously. She turned red. Yeah, it's all I could think of. He knows I don't have any brothers. He helped my dad, and it just kind of slipped out. Now back to you, he sighed. I don't remember much except falling. I remember landing on something soft. She tilted her head in confusion. The roof was soft. I guess that stopped when it caved in. I know it doesn't sound real. All I know is that I'm running from someone. Or falling in this case, Natalie giggled. Sorry, I didn't mean to make fun. He joined in her laughter. It's all right. Maybe you're right and I hit my head. The entire time that Dr. Curtis, she corrected. Right. I tried to make sense of it all. I can't seem to remember a thing besides falling, my name, and... He shook. Him. I know he wants to cage me again. He pulled his knees up to his chest, wrapping them in his arms, fear in his eyes. She saw a scared, vulnerable man. She reached out and put a hand on his shoulder, trying her best to support this man that fell into her life. Do you remember why he's after you? She asked, trying not to upset him further. Okay, first of all, these animals have got to chill. Second, we're back with her point of view. We're going with what she saw. So we've jumped points of view again. I'm just going to mark it. This is the moment where I noticed we were back in Natalie's point of view. So I have point of view musings in video, just not really sure. I'm not really sure. Usually when I do a point of view switch, I at least maintain the same person's point of view consistently throughout the chapter, particularly when I'm writing professionally, because they're agents and publishers seem to be very strict about that. I think maybe there may be more flexibility with it in the fantasy realm. I am not entirely sure, but I will say that I do switch points of view frequently, even from paragraph to paragraph in my fiction fun creative writing that I do just for fun with my role play friends, because they are usually playing the role of a different character, and so I'll write the part for my character and then pass the segment off to them, and then they add the next part in their character's perception of what's happening in the scene. It's kind of like a soap opera in my mind. So that is the exception that I do, and that's fine because it's for fun, and so it's just for the practice of writing, and that's the exception that I kind of follow. Okay, let's see. He blames me and wanted to control me. That's terrible. I can't imagine what that's like. She didn't know what else to say, but knew she wanted to help him feel better. Okay, it's early and the shops are open. Why don't we get you some clothes, something to eat, a wash, and if we're lucky, someone will know who you are. If not, then you're welcome here, under the circumstance that when you feel better, you help around here, and don't murder me in my sleep. She giggled at the dark joke as she stood. Deal? He laughed at the oddly dark joke. Okay, so you're kind of echoing on calling it a dark joke. I think we said we were going to do these in green. And we have an adverb too. I think we're doing those in purple today. Okay. He laughed at that. You could just omit all of this. He laughed at that from such a kind person. Okay, so this is his point of view again because it's his perception of her. Meanwhile, we're still with her point of view up here because we're in her thought. She didn't know what else to say. Okay, so you are head hopping. I would screen this entire chapter for that. I'm noticing it, and I don't want to mark each time I find a switch, but because I don't want to like completely bog down the document with that. But at the same time, it'll help you find it quickly. But I can only say I noted it from when it comes to my attention. I'm not sure how you'd prefer it. Okay, let's just keep going. Let's see. He laughed at her joke. You have yourself a deal. Not remembering the blanket as he stood naked once more. She couldn't help but see the spectacle in front of her. And turned away. There we go. And she turned away, blushing. Whoa, you're definitely going to need that. Looking down, he saw it. Turning red, he rushed to pick it back up, the tightness in his back slowing him down. So that's when you have a internal thought about pain directly from the character, that's in his point of view. Yep, you're right, he laughed, tying it together to cover himself. Natalie came around him, pulling the knot tighter. We don't need you suddenly revealing yourself in the middle of town. Inspecting it one last time, she walked to the door. Yeah, don't want that. Are you ready, Rafe? She asked, looking back at him. Outside with her, he thought. His heart beat faster. So his point of view, direct thought, his point of view. Yeah, I guess I am, but before we go, I think you might need to fix yourself up as well. He pointed to his palm. What do you mean? She looked at her hands, seeing his blood still coated them and her clothes. Oh my goodness, that would have worried anyone we met. We would have looked like a couple of nuts, she giggled. Let me wash up and we'll get going. She hurried over to the basin and washed the blood off before going to her room, shutting the door and coming out minutes later in a yellow sundress. Good job right there. Okay, let's try this again, shall we? Okay, I had to blurt out good job. This is exactly how you work in details, okay? She hurried over to the basin, washed the blood off before going to her room, shutting the door, and coming out minutes later in a yellow sundress. Perfect. Okay, so you have, when we're trying to work in the details of a garment of clothing, it's really well done to just slip it in as like, hey, she went in, she came out with a quick change, and now she's in a dress. Got it. It did not feel, it felt natural the way that you wrote it versus feeling forced and informative, if that makes sense. He stood in awe, seeing her look just as nice as she treated him. He smiled. Sure, lead the way. So having an opinion about her is his point of view. Leaving her small house, Natalie locked the door. By the way, me saying that is not me saying anything is wrong. I'm just letting you know, as a reader, whose point of view I believe we're in and why I believe that. Okay? We're going to keep going. Leaving her small house, Natalie locked the door and put the key in her small leather pouch. Okay, did we just mention that her house was small? So we kind of have an echo on that. I think we are going with green for that today. Here we go. Leaving her small house, Natalie locked the door and put the key in her small leather pouch around her waist. Not sure how much locking the door will do with a hole in the roof. Not sure how much good locking the door will do with a hole in the roof. She laughed. Rafe looked at the surrounding sights, his eyes adjusted to the morning sun beaming down on the field where the children played. Sunflowers against the house swayed in the gentle breeze of the morning, their bright yellow petals almost glowing in the sun's light. Okay, so this all seems like his point of view. It's the scene he's taking in, which, by the way, I think is a really pretty scene. He breathed in the fresh morning air and looked at her. The yellow sundress Natalie wore was the perfect replica of the bright color of the sunflowers that stood against her home. What a pretty scene you're setting. I like that. But we are also still in his point of view, I'm noting. Natalie pointed down the road. Town is this way, she said in a bright and cheery tone. He looked down the dirt road and saw a giant clock tower on the horizon. A spire pierced 3 large metallic orbs atop the clock, the hands of the clock showing that it was 6:56. I would say the hands, because we know that it's the clock because you mentioned it right here. Rafe stared in wonder at it. She looked at him, finding it cute that he was so surprised by the clock. Believe it or not, that used to be a weapon. Pausing. This is in her point of view because it's her opinion of him. Okay. No way, that tower was a weapon, he asked, barely believing her. Now that's his point of view because it's him's. He is saying that he doesn't really, he's not sure he believes that. Natalie walked down the road. Rafe followed closely by her side. Followed closely. Wondering about the closely because it's an adverb. I'm not really super fond of it. I'm wondering if we could rephrase that or just omit it. I'm not really sure. Let's see. Natalie walked down the road with Rafe following. About 270 years ago, or was it 280? Doesn't matter. She waved her hand. Anyways, the previous queen had defeated a man known as Flintlock Clock. Catchy name, right? Who was looking to use that tower to absorb electricity from lightning. He stored it and was going to use it to take over the world. She finished in a deep tone, giggling afterwards. Crazy, right? Long story short, the queen had it repurposed into a clock. I think you could have broke this into 2 sentences. Maybe, let's see, Flintlock Clock, catchy name, right? Question. I feel like that's a question mark. And I would change the who, this is just my suggestion, to he. Let me read it for you. You can choose whichever way you like, obviously. She waved her hand. Anyways, the previous queen had defeated a man known as Flintlock Clock. Catchy name, right? He was looking to use the tower to absorb electricity from lightning. He stored it and was going to use it to take over the world. She finished in a deep tone, giggling afterwards. Crazy, right? Long story short, the queen had it repurposed into a clock. He chuckled. So what does it do? It's not a weapon anymore, right? Natalie tilted her head in confusion. You must have hit your head pretty hard to not remember a clock. It tells the time and has a chime that tells us. The clock chimed as it hit 7. 7 times. It is 7 o'clock right now. Rafe stood in awe at the gong-like, I think that might be hyphenated, and it's agreeing with me. Rafe stood in awe at the gong-like sound it was giving off. And you said this queen made it this way? Oh no, she didn't do it personally, but led the change to it. Queen Clara was amazing, Natalie responded with an almost giddy amount of excitement in her voice. Whenever we got to read about her, and was probably the only time I paid attention in school. Rafe couldn't help but smile as Natalie barraged him with the level of interest she had for this queen. It was like looking at someone in their element, with so much pride and pure interest in the subject. He laughed when she made jokes. Okay, so that's his point of view. All right. Okay, so we're at a break of chapter 2. So I'm going to stop here so that your next video is starting off at that spot, and so you can pick up quickly following along when you're doing your edits. That leaves us with 8 minutes. That's a little bit short today, but I do think we accomplished a good bit. I'm going to highlight my spot. I can see that Rafe and Natalie are getting to know each other. We pointed out some point of view switches. This part read pretty well together. I like some of the scene setting you did in there. The visuals were nice. Very good. Okay, just a couple of adverbs here and there. This was a good read today for you. Okay, let's see. Let me go down here, back to my spot, and stop right there. And I will see you guys next time on Mystery Red Reads.